saw one of those signs a few months ago, keep calm and carry on. And I thought, right. In 2020, keep calm and carry on between the pandemic and the politics. How can you keep calm and carry on? I thought it was trite, ridiculous, foolish. I was upset. Maybe you've been upset. Some people, when they get upset, turn to prayer. As a storyteller, I turn to the old stories, like myths, not the tall tales, but myths and folk tales. Those stories are so old, they predate books, and they only were able to come to us because every generation found wisdom in them and told them to the next generation to help them with their lives. So there's countless generations that have preserved these myths and folk tales and religious stories for all of us. But this year, I didn't think to look to some old stories to help me. Luckily, this story came to me. Fran Yardley shared this story at the September Storytelling Night at Cafe Lena, broadcast over the internet. There once was a woman who had so many troubles. She couldn't think straight. She almost stopped functioning altogether. When she asked one of her friends, "What can I do? I have all these troubles." Her friend said, "Why don't you pray?" So the woman prayed, and then she fell asleep. She had this dream. She was in this cave. It was gray, it was misty, it was cold, it was damp. She looked for a source of heat or light. There was none. She saw all these gray bundles on the floor, and she didn't know what they were. Suddenly, an old man appeared, and she said, "Excuse me, where am I, and what are these bundles?" "Oh, you are in the cave of troubles. These are the bundles of troubles that everyone carries on their left shoulder. You may put your bundle down." And she looked, and she had never noticed, but yes, she did have a gray bundle on her shoulder. "You can put your bundle down and examine the others. And you can't leave here without a bundle, but you may choose whichever bundle you want." So the woman eagerly put her bundle down and tried the others, and finally she said, this is the one I want." They said, "Oh, you've chosen the one you came with." "I did?" "Yes, look." So she looked at, "Oh, yes, it is my bundle. I guess now at least I know this is the best bundle for me." And she started to say goodbye, but he said, "Oh, before you go, you must look on your right shoulder for your other bundle, for you have a second one." And she did, and this one was made of gold and silver threads woven together. "What is this bundle?" "Ah, that is your bundle of blessings. Open it." So she did, and it was overflowing with blessings. She said, "Oh, yes, that's I always knew that was right, that is a blessing. Oh, it's so good to know I have all these blessings." And she closed it up, put it back on her other right shoulder, and she turned to say to the old man goodbye and thank you, but he had gone. And then she realized she was awake in her bedroom, and it was morning and the sun was shining. So she lay in her bed thinking about her two bundles that she now really knew more about than she ever had before. And then she smiled because she realized she was feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time. She was feeling the warmth of the morning sun on her face. She hadn't noticed that when she was overwhelmed with her troubles. But now she could feel it. And she continued to smile. Oh, that story. Oh, I was so glad Fran had told that story. Now, I had heard a version of that story, but it always ended with just the one bundle, the bundle of troubles. And the woman had picked up the one that best suited her. It was her bundle of troubles, but she realized everyone had troubles. These were hers to carry. But I never knew about the bundle of blessings. Oh, I knew I had blessings. But I never thought of these terms. And so as I was thinking of my bundle of troubles and my bundle of blessings, I realized something very strange. That some of my troubles caused some of my blessings. For instance, one of my big troubles I've been carrying for a long time is in the decade between when I was 32 and 42. Each of my parents died of cancer, and my best friend was killed in an automobile accident. Trouble, right? But that trouble propelled me to storytelling. I wanted to share their stories. I wanted to create stories about them so I would never forget them. And I'd always remember the way I felt about them, because I knew with time, you forget things. And especially I wanted to create stories about my parents because my father died before my son was born, and my mother died when he was only 2. So the only way he would have any knowledge of my parents is if I told him stories about them. And then there was another trouble that, well, 11 years after my best friend was killed, the company that I had been working for 25 years decided they would prefer to go on without me. But that meant I could devote all my time to storytelling, which by then I realized was my vocation. So as I was thinking about troubles and blessings and which are which, I remembered this story. A long time ago in China, there was a man who had a grown-up son. They lived together. He was a very wise man, but that didn't mean they were wealthy. No, they just had one horse, a mare. One day, the mare ran off, and the wise man's neighbors came and said, "Oh, we are so sorry to hear about the disaster that has happened to you." They said, "Oh, you think this is a disaster? It might be a blessing." And since he was a wise man, they didn't argue with him, but they went away thinking, how can losing your only horse be a blessing? But several weeks later, the mayor came back with a stallion. The neighbors rushed over and said, "Oh, what a blessing. Now you have 2 horses." But the wise men said, "It could be a blessing, but it might be a disaster." And again, they went, how could that be a disaster? Time passed. The son decided to try to tame the stallion, and he jumped on the stallion's back, and the stallion threw him off, and the young man's leg was broken very badly, and it never mended well. He always limped, and it was a painful limp. When the neighbors heard that, they came over and said to the wise men, "We are so sorry to hear about this disaster with your son and his leg." He said, "It might be a disaster, but it might be a blessing." And they went, "Blessing? How?" Well, in a few months, there was a war, and all the able-bodied young men from that village had to go off and fight in the war. Very, very few of them returned. But the young man with the painful limp, he lived. and he and his father took care of each other. Some people say in China, you can never tell if it's a blessing or a disaster until you get to the end of the story. So now I'm thinking about my bundles and that last story and how it goes back and forth, and that sign came into my mind. And I realized that was exactly what I need to do. Yes, I intend to keep calm and carry on with my bundle of troubles and my bundle of blessings. And I'll just keep on and carry on as I travel to the end of my story. Thank you.
Very nice.